Probably the most important thing to know about my mom is her passion about preservation, both of the historic side of things and also the natural side of things. And I think a lot of that stems from having grown up in a house known as Round Top, which is in the eastern part of York County. It sits up on a ridge overlooking the Susquehanna River. It was a house that was built in the 1880s and was restored by my grandparents back in the 1930s. So from the very beginning, she had a sense of history and of preserving the past, and living in a house like that and surrounded by acres and acres of woodland, a lot of old growth forests. Also, I think contributed to her passion, a love for the environment, for natural lands, for native species and plants. It's a charcoal drawing, and she did it in college. It's a view looking out the dining room window from Round Top, looking down the road with the river in the distance. She didn't have any training, so she had a latent native talent, and I see that in our kids as well. I mean, so there's sort of a gene, I think, that's running through the family there in some way. Her interest in history eventually led also to her successful and fruitful career in archaeology. And although she was a wonderful mom and full-time housemaker, she had the drive and passion to go on and get a PhD and a full-time career in archaeology, teaching both anthropology and archaeology. So when she moved back to this area, she taught for many years at Millersville, ran field schools, and loved working with students and kind of passing on her interest in history and archaeology as well. She regularly ran tours down at the furnaces, and she was very involved in the furnaces and the parks down there along the river. And many people would say that they would look forward every year to her guided tour of those ruins and of the furnaces down along the river. I think she was really good at talking about and passing along her interest and passion in these places, and that really, you could tell that it really had an impact on people. My parents, they were quite a team. They were very different in personality, but they worked really well together. They both had very similar passions about things like history and preservation and sustainability, and they pass that on to their children. We all have similar passions and interests as well. It's a shot of her at the Horn Farm Center, a place where both she and my dad spent many of their retired years. It became, when she retired from Millersville, I think that became one of the biggest projects that they were involved with, and one they were very proud of.
Well, June was a very dear friend of mine, and I always thought of her as a shining example of a life well lived. She took a lot of delight in her family and the lives of her children and grandchildren as they blossomed. She was an avid reader. Historical fiction was her favorite. She loved to garden. She was always out every summer in her vegetable garden. I think the one thing, though, that really struck me about June was her love for York County, and especially Helen Township, where she grew up. I admired June because she delved so deeply into the things that she cared about. She would develop her understanding and her expertise so that she could have an important impact. I saw this for the first time many years ago when she and I worked together on the board that brought the Horn Farm Center in Helen Township to life. And then I saw it again as we worked together in civic involvement in Helen Township. And it wasn't just what June brought to the table, it was how she brought it. Even in times of contention or disagreement or provocation, June was always soft-spoken, always respectful, and always composed. But she would never ever back down on what she believed in. If at first she didn't succeed, she'd try again. She showed the rest of us who worked with her how it's done.
Another organization is the Historic Helen Preserve. The log house here dates back to colonial times. That particular time in history was very much of interest to her, but also it's right here in her backyard, and it really gets to the history of the formation of York County and of Helen Township. These are some of the earliest settlers here.
Well, her life was really devoted, I think, especially in later years, to serving her community in ways that would preserve the past of her hometown and safeguard the future. She spent a tremendous amount of time researching things and writing and compiling and presenting and educating.
It's really great to see that, that her legacy not only lives on within us, but within the students that she taught, the people she worked with in the township, and I think her passion was contagious, you know, and I know there's sort of a hole right now. I think a lot of people have said they kind of really feel, you know, they miss her presence here in the township. But at the same time, I think many feel that they want to continue that legacy that she instilled in them. You know, that passion for preservation, for history, for you know, looking after the environment, all those things.
The influence that she's had on me and on this community, I think, will be felt for years to come. Our community has been made so much better for having been touched by June Evans.